This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. I want to start a new message today by continuing talking about the war that Israel is fighting with Hamas and how this war is leading to the rapture, but also to the Antichrist coming on the scene in a more powerful, visible way. But let's go to the Father in prayer first. Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister to your people, Father. I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Help people, Father, to open up their spirits and not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. We talked on the last podcast about the word Hamas, how it means violence. And just to review, go to Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6, verse 11. The earth also was corrupt before the Father, and the earth was filled with violence. Again, that word violence is Hamas in Hebrew. And the Father looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And the Father said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence, or with Hamas, through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood, rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. So the timing of Hamas, their uprising, they're invading Israel. I believe the Father is showing us, again, that the rapture is soon to approach, but also that Antichrist is coming on the scene in a more visible and more powerful way. Go with me to 1 Samuel chapter 4. Go to the right to 1 Samuel. Remember that the Father controls everything and everybody. Everything was made by him and for him, and by him all things consist, whether it be thrones, principalities, powers, mights, dominions. All was created by him and for him, and by him all things consist. He allowed that invasion, and he's opening up our spirits to see that what's about ready to happen very, very soon concerning the rapture and this Antichrist, who's already controlling so much in the world, but he's going to come out more visibly. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, here's where Eli was waiting to hear about the war with the Philistines. And his two sons were in the battle. In verse 17, 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 17, and the messenger answered and said, Israel's fled before the Philistines. Now remember, the Palestinians go right back to the Philistines, the descendants of the Philistines. And we talked last time about Samson being the judge over Israel for 20 years, and they were being oppressed by the Philistines. And their headquarters was in Gaza, just like the headquarters of the Palestinians today is in Gaza. Again, and the messenger answered and said, Israel's fled before the Philistines, and there had been also a great slaughter among the people, and thy two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of the Father is taken. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of the Father, that he fell from off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke. And he died, for he was an old man and heavy, and he judged Israel 40 years. Remember, the Father is allowing Israel to be attacked, and is allowed being surrounded by so many of her neighbors that are against her. And he's going to show up at that Ezekiel 38-39 war and win for the 1/3 of the Jews that are left. And they're going to see him as their Messiah. They're going to see him, the one who they pierced. In Zechariah chapter 12. But in chapter 5, and the Philistines in verse 1 took the ark of the Father and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. And when the Philistines took the ark of the Father, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. Dagon was a pagan god that they worshiped, half man, half fish. And if you put an R in there between the D and A, you got dragon. The Father was showing me that we're so close to Satan, who's the dragon, putting his man, Antichrist, on the throne and setting him up with power and authority. And the Father's allowing this because the time is short. This is the time right now. And he's trying to show us by this invasion of Hamas that the time is approaching. It's for us to get ready, as we talked about in the message before the last one, about the bridegroom is coming for his bride, and the bride needs to make herself ready. The main thing we do is to believe that Yeshua died for us, surrender everything to the Father, especially our flesh, ask the Father to come into our spirit, fill us with his spirit, mortify the deeds of our flesh, make us more and more like Yeshua, and bring the fruit of the Spirit out of our lives. Then we are standing on a strong foundation with him, because every day he's going to work on us and reveal stuff that he wants to take out of our lives that are not pleasing to him. He wants to do a spiritual operation on us and get us ready for the rapture. And verse 3, when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of Yahweh. Remember, Satan was created by the Father. He's a created waste. It says in Isaiah 54, verse 16. Isaiah 54, verse 16. Just write it down and stay where you are. Behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and I bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I've created the waster to destroy. When you surrender everything to the Father, and the Father puts you on this sanctification process, just call Satan a waste. You're a waste. You have no power in my life. In verse 17, I'm just reading to you, stay where you are. No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against us in judgment, we shall condemn. This is our heritage. We're the servants of the Father, and our righteousness is of him, said Yahweh. So we can see that the statue of Dagon fell upon his face before the ark of Yahweh. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. What kind of a God is he that people have to pick him up and put him back in his place? And when he rose early in the morning, verse 4, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh, and the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left there. And remember, the devil has no power unless the Father gives him power. Remember in the book of Job, Satan was coming to the Father, sitting on a throne. He was coming for his next assignment, and he gave him Job as his assignment. Don't get me wrong. When you don't surrender everything to the Father, when you don't allow the Father to put you on the sanctification process and work on you every day, then Satan's got power against you. Satan's got power in your life. And you need to draw closer to the Father and don't hold anything back for him. Be willing to surrender everything that he wants out of your life, and he'll replace it with everything that he wants in your life. You can read in Deuteronomy 28, verse 1 to 14 about his blessings, but you can also read from verse 15 to 67 his curses. In verse 5, therefore neither the priest of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. You ever wonder how that tradition about the bridegroom taking the bride over the threshold? It started with this junk. They didn't want to go over the threshold. There's so much tradition that's been in people's lives that go right back to pagan roots. That's why you got to make sure that there's nothing in your walk with the Father through Yeshua that has any pagan origins. Or Satan's going to come right into your house, right into your life. You can plead the blood all you want. He'll come right in there because you're giving place to the devil. Whether it be these holidays that Constantine brought into his form of Christianity, which have no basis in the word at all, the origin of these holidays are from Satan. Christmas is based on the birth of the Mitras, the sun god. Why would anybody want to celebrate Christmas, especially when Yeshua was born on Passover, died on Passover? There's a message on my website, a written message, henrywalker.org. When was Yeshua born? When did he die? When did he rise? That one message wipes out any Christmas worship, any Easter worship, and any Good Friday worship. Because he was born on Passover, died on Passover. He gave up his life on Wednesday, the middle of the week, at 3 p.m. He rose on Saturday, the Sabbath, at 3 p.m. There's no reason for an Easter holiday, sunrise service. He rose from the dead 72 hours later from when he gave up his life. It's all in that message, going back to Daniel 9, that the Messiah is going to be cut off in the middle of the week, and how Yeshua made claim that just like Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man spend 3 days and 3 nights, 72 hours, in the heart of the earth. It's so important you pray about what I'm saying, because you don't want anything to interfere with your walk with the Father through Yeshua. You don't want Satan just having an access to your house because you left the spiritual door open. And again, we talked about it. I have a message on my website about wine as a mocker. What's the truth? Did Yeshua make intoxicating wine for those people having that wedding feast? Usually those wedding feasts went on 3 days. Is he going to give something that breaks down brain cells, like intoxicating wine? No, he made grape juice. And the whole message is there. See, the word wine in the Old and the New Testament is the same Hebrew word, the same Greek word for intoxicating wine and grape juice. You have to see what the context of what is being written is about. But it's so important to you. If you want to bring that stuff into your house, Satan is right there. It says, don't give place to the devil. But the choice is up to you. And all the feast days, we need to be following Yeshua's feast days. Why do you think that Hamas chose to attack on the last day of Tabernacles, on a Shabbat? My book, Noon, on the bottom of my written message page, is free. It talks about the feast days. Also, a book right below it, it's free, is The Trinity Really a Mystery? You can see what Constantine brought into his form of Christianity. But the choice is up to you. Pray about what I said. Research. Even though the Father has us on the sanctification process, we need to work out our own salvation. We need to study the Word. Be instant in season and out of season, to reprove, rebuke, with all long-suffering and doctrine. Base your relationship with the Father through Yeshua on His Word only, not on tradition. In verse 6, but the hand of Yahweh was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and He destroyed them and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. And the Philistines, oh, you can say the Palestinians are really upset. Say they took the ark. And how many hostages did Hamas take? They released 2. But how many hostages did they take? Yahweh's not going to allow them to rest after what they did. In chapter 6, verse 1, and the ark of Yahweh was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines didn't know what to do. So they said, we're going to send the ark back with an offering. We'll have this test. We'll take these 2 cows with their babies in the barn and tie the ark to these 2 cows. And if these cows go in a direction where the Israelites are, then we know that their Yahweh is the only Yahweh. In verse 10, and the men did so and took 2 milch kine and tied them to the cart and shut up their calves at home. And he laid the ark of Yahweh upon the cart and the coffer with the mice of gold and the images of their emerods. And the kine took the straight way to the way of Beth Shemesh and went along the highway, lowering as they went. They were crying out for their calves, but they still went in the direction you're supposed to go, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And the leaders of the Philistines went after them unto the border of Beth Shemesh, and went right to the Israelites. When the ark came back in chapter 7, verse 3, and Samuel spoke unto all the house of Israel, saying, if you return unto Yahweh with all your hearts, and put away the strange gods and Ashtoreth. That's where Easter comes from, Ashtaroth, Easter, Ashtar. Put away the strange gods and Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto Yahweh, and serve Him only, and He will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. See, some of you may not agree with what I'm saying, but you can't say you never heard. What I'm saying is based on the Word. And allowing the Father to get those holidays out of my life has enhanced my relationship with the Father through Yeshua. Because indirectly, when you celebrate Christmas for the birth of the sun god, and you're actually making it Yeshua's birthday, indirectly you're saying that Yeshua is the sun god. It's very serious. We got to worship the Father in spirit and truth. Again, he said, put away those strange gods and Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto Yahweh, and serve Him only, and He will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. And look how the Philistines are rising up again with the Palestinians and Hamas. So the Palestinians voted Hamas in. I mean, some beautiful Palestinians, they hate to see anybody being killed in the destruction But Yahweh is moving. He's trying to show Israel something. He's trying to show his believers something too. Verse 4, then the children of Israel put away Baalim and Ashtaroth and served Yahweh only. Remember, 7,000 times in the Old Testament, instead of putting Yahweh, they put Lord, capitalized. And Lord comes from Baal. Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. And you don't call him Jehovah. Jehovah is a 15th century word. And Hovah, H-O-V-A-H, means wicked or trickster. So you call him the Father wicked or trickster by calling him Jehovah. You can look in the Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew portion, number 1942, 1943. It's important. I have a message on my website about origin and names. Read it. How many names that we used to use that have pagan origins that we thought were all part of our walk with Yeshua? Because they repented. In verse 10, as Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel, but Yahweh thundered with a great thunder on that day upon the Philistines and discomfited them, and they were smitten before Israel. Go with me to the book of Judges, back to the left. The book of Judges, chapter 16. Again, we're talking about the Philistines, their arch enemies to Israel, how that's carried forward into the Palestinians being led by Hamas. Again, that word Hamas means violence. And it's pretty evident that that's what Hamas is all about, violence and fear, oppression. I'm not saying that Israel is perfect in everything they do. They got some problems in the government. There's problems in the governments around the world. There's so many people want to run for office and help people, but as soon as they get into power, there's money passed under the table, special interest groups. And it's pretty sad that you expect politicians to help you and to work for the people. And the only time they say they're going to work for the people is around the re-election time. So I say most of the governments around the world are corrupt. That's why you need to know the Father through Yeshua and surrender everything to Him. And remember that His name is Yahweh. I am that I am. Whatever you need Him to be, He will be as you surrender everything to Him. And Yahshua is Y-A-H-S-H-U-A, comes from Y-A-H-W-H. It's the Father. Yeshua is the Father manifest in the flesh. It's another function of the Father, saving us. Yeshua means the Father, our Savior. Then Judges chapter 16, verse 1. Judges chapter 16, verse 1. Then went Samson to Gaza. Again, that's the headquarters of Hamas now, and it was then. History repeats itself sometimes. And saw their harlot and went into it. That was Delilah. And Delilah convinced him to show the secret of his strength. And he told her, the Philistines came, bound him, plucked out his eyes. In verse 21, but the Philistines took him, Samson, and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass. And he did grind in the prison. There's a prisoner, just like the Hamas people did, took prisoners, hostages. Howbeit his hair started to grow. That was the secret of his strength. It was his hair, not cutting his hair. In verse 23, then the leaders of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their God, and to rejoice. And said, for our God had delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. There's that Dagon again. Put the R in it, dragon. What's happening in Israel is nothing more but Satan. Yahweh's allowing Satan to be doing this to set up the Father's end-time plan. In verse 27, the house where they were worshiping Dagon was full of men and women, and all the leaders of the Philistines were there, and there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. And Samson said, Father, one more time give me my strength, that I might avenge myself of the Philistines. Verse 29, and Samson took hold of the two pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might. And the house fell upon the leaders of the Philistines, and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Please go back to the book of Exodus, chapter 32. We want to talk more about the Antichrist right now. Exodus chapter 32, verse 1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto him, break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at his hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And he said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Look at all that the Father did for them. Bringing them out of Egypt, opening up the Red Sea, bringing them into the new land. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is the feast. This is their Yahweh now, this molten calf. And he rose up early in the morrow and offered burnt offerings to this golden calf. So everything about this Antichrist is about gold, money, money. This Antichrist is working behind the scenes, and there are people who are saying, I wish he was in power, because we wouldn't have a war in Ukraine, and we wouldn't have this thing in the Middle East, and the economy would be so great. This is all making room for him to come on the scenes as a savior, as the king of Israel. As blasphemous as they sound, this is what they're looking for this person. The dragon gave this Antichrist power, and it's gotten to a point right now where people are looking for him. Things were different then, and now look at them. We need him to come back on the scene and help us. And it's this whole World War III scare, fear, it's all based on this Antichrist is engineering things behind the scene to make more and more people want him to come back on the scene and be their savior, quote unquote. It's so obvious when I look at the word here. If you just keep your hand there and go to Revelation chapter 13, it's like Yahweh is setting up a dividing line. Who are you going to serve? Like Joshua said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve Yahweh. Who are you going to serve? Are you basing your walk with the Father through Yeshua on your finances or on things that are happening in the world? No. He wants us to see things through his eyes, that he's taking care of his remnant, just like in a greater way that he took care of his people in Goshen, in Egypt. He's taking care of us after we surrender everything to him and we're on that sanctification process. Then he takes care of us. Revelation chapter 13, in verse 1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. This is the Antichrist, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. As I mentioned, the dragon, Dagon, is the Father warning us that this is soon to happen. Get ready. We who have surrendered everything to the Father and are on the sanctification process, we won't be going through that tribulation, but we need to warn other people. And I saw one of his heads in verse 3 as were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, or Dagon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast. In verse 4, and they worshipped the dragon, or Dagon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? This beast, this Antichrist, will have the military behind him. He's a military man. And the second beast came. In verse 11, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he did great wonders, that he make fire come down from heaven on the earth and in the sight of men, and deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. Look what Aaron did. Aaron's a type of that false prophet, making an image to this golden calf. In verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the number or the name of the beast or the number of his name. This Antichrist has a name that's known throughout the world. It says in Daniel 7 that he's going to make war with the saints. He's going to be saying, hey, I'm for you. I'm going to do things to help you. But then he's going to turn on the saints. He's going to turn on Israel. This mark is a spiritual mark. On the forehead means people will be thinking about this Antichrist and have his name in their minds. Their right hand is that this Antichrist is going to get some people power, but it's not going to last very long. He'll take it back. And he wants to control everybody's finances. They can't buy or sell. And that's a process that's already starting in so many countries. But in chapter 14, verse 1, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. 144,000 is not a precise number. It's divisible by 12. So it means all of his saints will have the Father's name written on their foreheads. His name is Yahweh. So we think about Yahweh. He's in our minds. And the right hand means he gives us power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and nothing by any means shall harm us. So it's important that you see what's happening in the Middle East is pointing to this Antichrist coming back in power. And he's orchestrating this whole thing behind the scenes, where people would be panting to have him come back. We need him back. We need him back. So draw closer to him right now. You know that the Father has everything under control. He has the wicked under control. All spirits report to the Father. So have no fear as long as you belong to the Father. Before I get back to the message, this ministry is a pro-life ministry. We believe life begins at conception, that the Father is the agent of conception. And every podcast, I pray for the babies in the womb. And remember, the babies in the womb, their hearts begin to beat around 18 days. And around 4 months, the babies in the womb, their hearts are pumping about 25 quarts of blood per day. I'm going to pray for the babies in the womb right now, if you care to join with me. I remember the testimony I gave about this neighbor. His wife had a lady friend who was pregnant with a baby, and the doctor said the baby is going to be a Down syndrome baby. And me and others, we prayed. And now that baby was delivered, 5 months old, and is in perfect physical condition. So I'm going to pray for the babies in the womb. If you want to pray with me, Father, I'm asking you to touch the babies in the womb right now. Bring them to a full birth, Father. And we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. And if any of you out there had an abortion, repent, ask the Father to forgive you, and go on following him into purpose and destiny, and don't look back. Also, on every podcast, I say that if your flesh is acting up and giving you impure thoughts, worried, fearful thoughts, just say out loud, say, Yeshua, I thank you for that crown of thorns that you had on your head. That was for me. That means my mind is covered by your blood. I only think your thoughts, and give those thoughts to the Father. So again, we're talking about how this Gaza war, this Hamas invasion of Israel, is pointing the way to the soon coming rapture, and also to the appearance of the Antichrist in a more visible way. So if you enjoy these podcasts, tell other people about these podcasts, share, subscribe, hit the like button, and remember to next time. This is Evangelist Henry Walker saying, greater is the Father in you, your daddy, the King of the universe, than anything or anybody in the world.